Hello again, Rick from Lifted Off-Road, working on the Black Hole a 95 GMC Suburban RV, and I need to do a bunch of stuff. So let me show you around, and let's see, there's the front suspension. I hope that radio is not too loud in the background, but mostly I've got to do the ball joints, the lower control arm bushings. I need to check the flatness of these brake rotors. I'm getting a vibration when I use my brakes sometimes. That could mean that the rotors are out of rounds. So when I take them off and make sure they're flat and straight, hopefully I don't need to get new rotors. The brake pads still look okay. Still got some life on the pads. And the upper control arm bushings, I changed them out about a year or so ago. I put those energy suspension polyurethane bushings in the uppers, but I do need to change out these little tabs up here that help adjust the camber and the caster angles. I think I put them in upside down. They're supposed to be in the down position. I put them back in the up position, because originally when I did the bushings, one side was up, the other side was down, and for some reason I decided to put them both back up in the up position, and I think that was wrong. So I got to take those out, switch them back to so they're in the down position. I'm going to check the bushings again while I have it apart, just to make sure they're still okay, maybe put some more grease on them. I got to do both ball joints, upper and lower, and the control arm bushings for the lower control arms. I didn't do that the last time, even though I have the bushings, because I didn't feel like going through the work at the time. I didn't really think they were necessary. When I took this truck in for an alignment the last time, they wouldn't do the alignment because they said my ball joints were bad and the control arm bushings were bad. So they wouldn't do the alignment. Which was alright, because the alignment isn't that bad to begin with. So it hasn't been a problem. I just wanted to have it, adjusted. So I got to do that on both sides. And like I mentioned before, I've still got the engine compartment to contend with. I got some pulleys that need to be replaced, and some bearings that I need to do. And while I'm up here, I'm going to show off my Vistaprint little banner that I got, which get ready to get the angles right. And there's a little banner, Vistaprint. It's pretty cool, I thought. So I thought that was neat. Anyway, along with my hat, Lifted Off-Road. Woo! Starting to get my merchandise, or not merchandise, but I don't know what you'd call it, swag, but stuff like that. But anyway, that's what I'm working on right now. Got to get both sides done. I'll probably do one side and then the next. And while I'm at it, I will clean off the parts, maybe throw some paint on there, make them look nice, and throw it back together. So I'm gonna get on that, and I'll be back in a few. Later. Well, here we are again. Let's see, I got the hub off, got the brake caliper hanging. I've got the upper ball joint loose. I don't know if you can see that. Got the upper ball joint loose. I'm still working on getting the lower ball joint loose. And I sprayed everything down with some penetrating oil. And that's where we're at so far. Still working on getting that lower ball joint loose so I can take off the knuckle. I've got my pile, got my bolts, hub buoyant, spindle nut, wheel bearing. I think I replaced that bearing not very long ago, like maybe within the past couple of years, but I'm not sure. It still feels pretty solid when I took it off. And got my pile of tools. laying around, brake backing plate. So here's where we are, just taking a break, letting that oil soak in. I just sprayed it a little bit, been banging on it with the hammer, and then that lower ball joint's not coming loose yet. So I'll give the oil a few minutes to penetrate, and we shall see how much longer it takes. An experienced mechanic could probably do this in a couple of hours. I know what I'm doing, I just don't have that much experience, so it's taken me a few hours. And not to say I don't know what I'm doing, I just haven't done it very many times. Like I said, in the previous video, when I mentioned replacing the upper control arm bushings, I never actually took the knuckle off from the ball joints. So usually when I put stuff back together, I use anti-seize. But since I didn't mess with it last time, I didn't put anti-seize on it. So it's kind of being a pain right now. So that's about where I'm at right now. I would let the camera run for a little while, but I think that might be kind of boring, watching me struggle with that crap. On the other hand, it might be somewhat entertainment, but I'm going to take a break, smoke a cigarette, have a beer, and then I will get back to it in a few. Later. Okay, well, I finally got it apart. Let's see if I can show it to you. And alright, there you go. And zoom out a little bit. I had to take off the front of the drive shaft. You can see that right there. That's where the drive shaft goes. Disconnect the sway bar link. Got the lower control arm out, the upper control arm out. The shock had to come out to get the bolts off. So before I could get the control arms, I had to take the shock off. Sway bar link, drive shaft, CV shaft, whatever you want to call it. And you can't see it from there. On this particular model, that is the torsion bar. That's the end of the torsion bar. That had to come off. So to do that, where is it at? There's the key, torsion bar key. Loosen up the torsion bar key, take that off. You had to shove, I don't know which direction I'm going. There you go. Had to shove the torsion bar forward to disengage it from the lower control arm. And once you got the bolts out, that enabled the control arm to come right out. So once I got all that stuff out of the way, the control arm itself came right out with no problem. And the biggest hassle that I did not realize I had to do was removing that front drive shaft, because that flange is right where the head of the bolt is. You cannot get the bolt out unless you take off the CV shaft. I did not know that at first, so I struggled with that for a while, and until I just took it off. So there's the tie rod end. That's my progress so far. I got the brake caliper hanging. Never hang your brake calipers by the hose. Always hang them with something. In this case, I used some heavy gauge wire. I just wrapped it through a hole that was already there, wrapped it around the caliper, and I've got it suspended. So yeah, never let your calipers hang by the hose, because that could cause damage to the brake line, and then you'll be replacing brake lines, which you don't want to do unless you have to. So here's the tie rod end. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah, it's got some play. These ends aren't that old. Only maybe a couple thousand miles. Well, after, yeah, probably less than 10,000 miles on those tie rod ends. They're not that old, and you can move them by hand, but they're not real loose. I don't think the tie rod ends have to be especially tight. The ball joints are supposed to be pretty tight. because they carry a lot more weight behind them. So there we go. That's what I'm at right now. I have my pile of tools that I had to use. Is the brake backing plate. There's that. I got my pile of tools that I used, and here's the steering knuckle right there. Here's my pile of other tools. This is the upper control arm. As I mentioned before, I had already replaced the bushings on this, so I'll probably just clean them up, maybe give them a little bit of more grease, and put them back together. I reinstalled the upper ball joint. It goes there. Here's the drive shaft, the front CV shaft that I had to take off, and there's the lower control arm. So this ball joint's pretty shot. I mean, the boot is all ripped and tore up, and of course it's even more tore up now since I had to pry it off of the steering knuckle. Oh, let's see. So this is a good look at that. I mean, look how loose that is. I mean, that doesn't require any effort at all. My new ball joints are pretty hard to move by hand. I mean, especially with my thumb. So the boot was not this bad before I took it apart. Most of that damage was done by the pickle fork that I used to separate it from the steering knuckle. But the ball joint was still, the boot was still bad to begin with. I just made it worse. So I'm gonna do that, and let's see. Let me show you these bushings. Here's one bushing. You can kind of see it's tore up a little bit. Oh, there you go. This bushing's starting to fall apart, and it's real soft rubber. Hold on, let me switch hands here. There we go. That should be a little bit better. So that's the outer side. You can see that's all kind of messed up. Get a view. Oh, one of my overhead lights just went out on me. Can you get some decent light on that? It don't look like it. That's the inner of the other side. It's pretty rough too. Can't really see it on the film, but I mean, it's falling apart in my fingers. Let's check out the other side. The other side of this one isn't that bad looking. I mean, it's got some cracks in it. It's not as bad as the other side. It's got some cracks, so it needs to be replaced. The other side, the inner side of this one is definitely really bad, because that's the one I was just showing you. It's got all kinds of falling apart on my fingers. Here's the inner side of this. Yeah, I can feel some cracks. The light in here is terrible. I'm sorry. One of my overhead lights just went out. The bulb must be bad. But yeah, so replace those. I got new Hyperflex polyurethane bushings. I don't know if you can see that. The box is upright. It's not upright, it's canny wobbled, whatever. So I got polyurethane bushings to put in. Got some new ball joints to do. Probably clean these up a bit, maybe throw some paint on them. When I take stuff apart, I like to paint it just so that I know that I've taken it apart before. Eventually, most of this truck will probably end up being taken apart. It'll be a different color, well, maybe not a different color. But I've been using like a camouflage olive drab color, kinda a little bit flatter than that. The parts that I take apart, I put back on, I paint them green because I like the color. It's like an olive green color. But I don't know, maybe I'll leave these black. Haven't decided yet. Any rate, I gotta take them apart, get the ball joints out, get the bushings out, get the new ball joints put back in, and then I gotta do the other side. the other side of the truck. It'll be another 2 weeks for me to finish the other side. It's already been a week and a half since I started this job, only because I haven't been in a rush and I've been lazy. So I got it apart and just now finished that. Probably clean up this a little bit, throw some paint on it, try to wash it off as best as I can, scrape off some of the rust and put some rust preventer in there. Maybe I'll use truck bed liner. So there we go. Let me flip this around. Okay, well, that's our status so far as doing the front suspension on the Suburban. This has been Lifted Off-Road. I'll get back to you when I'm finished, or not when I'm finished, but in the process of putting it back together. I'll get back to you and see you then. Have fun and stay lifted. Bye. Alright folks, it's been a while. I'm basically done on this side. All I have left to do is put the wheel on and put it back down on the vehicle's weight, tighten up the upper control arm bolts, the lower control arm bolts, adjust the torsion key, and this should be done. But I won't do any of that until I finish with the other side, and I can get both wheels back on and get the vehicle dropped back down on its own weight. So I'm pretty much done with this side. You know, I got it, a bunch of the frame rails repainted, painted it with some truck bed liner. I painted the upper and lower control arms. I don't know how well you can tell. Yeah, you can't really tell it too well on this camera. But got some fresh paint on the control arms. I painted the knuckle, I painted the frame rail, put some anti-rust paint on there, and then threw a couple coats of truck bed liner on it. So it's all nice and black now. And got the shocks back on. I got everything torqued down. Everything except the control arm bolts and the torsion key. So we should be pretty good on this side. Maybe for the I don't know if I mentioned it before, but I also had to replace the wheel speed sensor. So I got a new wheel speed sensor here and got that mounted up. Check the brake pads. The brake pads have some cracks in them, and they're not really bad cracks, but they're little hairline fractures that you can see going through it. So I'll probably have to address that pretty soon. But for now, brake pads are easy enough to replace. I'm not worried about that. I can always just take the wheels off and do the brakes. That's no big deal. But I just wanted to get this major job done and over with. So that's about it for this side. Now I need to move over to the other side. Maybe on the other side I'll show you more video of me actually doing something. And this side is way too dark. So, oh well. So I still gotta do this side. So yeah, so maybe on this side I'll actually take video of me doing the work instead of just clips here and there showing the different steps that I went through. So, alright, well, this clip, in addition to the other clips I made, ought to make a fairly long video. I hope it's not too boring for you. So I'm gonna sign off for now, and I will be back next time, probably with the other side of the truck. I'll start working on that one. So let me flip this around. So that's about it for me for now. Rick from Lifted Off-Road signing off. I will be back shortly. Please join me again, like and subscribe. I hope you enjoy my videos. They might be kind of boring, but I'm doing what I can. I'm still a beginner at the YouTube stuff, so in time I'm sure I'll get better. So that's it for now. See you again later.